Well, good evening. I'm a little late posting this. Normally I get try to do it a little bit earlier, but I went to the park today, and where I normally do my videos, and the house right beside the park, a tree had fell on it when we had the storms this past week, and took the whole front of the house off, and then there was some trees down in the park, so they had it blocked off, so I couldn't get in there. And another place that I had tried to go, they were doing a lot of weed eating, and it would have been hard to hear. So anyway, so I stopped doing that, put it off, and went and helped shuck corn and break beans with my mom and my sister. So my fingers are sore, but it was good. I don't know why we don't do that anymore. It's actually a good therapy session. It's like counseling. Everybody's giving counseling and giving the words of advice, and no wonder the women that did that years ago didn't seem to have as many problems, because they talked it all out, and then by the time they got home they were too tired to argue. So there was your counseling. So I was telling my sister that, so it's kind of funny. There's your counseling, because by the time everybody talks, you forget about what you talked about, so there's nothing to tell. There's no secrets that's got to be spilled, because you've done forgot what everybody said, and forgot all what you emptied out. So you've emptied it out, and then it's all done, all good, all well and good. But anyway, so we come over to our daughter's house in Chattanooga, and to visit with them. So I'm actually in her backyard. She's got a beautiful bush right behind me. So we don't know what kind it is. It's just got some real pretty purple flowers on it. I think it's a tree, or maybe a bush, but anyway, it's beautiful, whatever it is. But anyway, what I wanted to talk to you about today, the message that the Lord gave me, was about the woman with the issue of blood. And she had that for 12 years, and I'm not going to read everything that I read about it, because there's a lot. Like you go all the way back to I believe it's in Leviticus. If you had any kind of bleeding disorder, any kind of drainage, body fluids, you were considered unclean, and you could not, until that was cleared up, you could not be around anybody. You definitely could not go to the temple, and anybody that got around you, touched you, or anything that you've touched was considered unclean. And this woman had an issue of blood for 12 years. Can you imagine that? For us as women, that have our monthly, can you imagine it? She had it for 12 years. So let me read you out of Luke. Let's see, Luke chapter 8, and where it talks about her issue, and then I'll read some other things to you. This is Luke chapter 8, verses 43 through 47. It says, and a woman having an issue of blood 12 years, which had spent all of her living upon physicians, neither could be healed of any. This is where Jesus was walking in. He was actually headed towards a Jairus' house where he had Jairus' only daughter, about 12 years of age, was late. She was laying dying. So Jesus and his disciples and a lot of people were headed towards that house, and so there was a good many people, and so she was saying, if I could just touch the hem of his garment. But let me finish reading it, and then I'll talk to you about that. Let's see here. She came behind him and touched the border of his garment, and immediately her issue of blood staunched, which means it stopped. And Jesus said, "Who touched me?" When all denied, Peter and they that were with him said, "Master, the multitude throng thee and press thee, and sayest thou, Who touched me?" And Jesus said, "Somebody hath touched me, for I perceive that virtue is gone out of me." And when the woman saw that she was not hid, she came trembling, and falling down before him, she declared unto him before all the people for what cause she had touched him, and how she was healed immediately. So you can imagine her, if she was considered unclean. She couldn't go to church, couldn't go to temple for 12 years. And anybody that got around her, they knew that because she'd had it that long, they'd cry out, "Unclean, unclean." Can you imagine being separated from from everybody that you knew, and everybody that you know, every time they saw you, they yell out, unclean, unclean. And so she was basically, you know, cast out. She was a castaway. She was cast out of the synagogue. She was cast away from friends, pretty much isolated because of something that she didn't have any control over. She'd spent all of her money given, you know, to physicians to try to heal her, and they couldn't do it. But you know, how did she know just by touching the hem of his garment that she would be healed? How did she know that? Well, that goes back all the way to Numbers, and that one is, it's Numbers chapter 15, verse 37 through 40. So let me find that one for you and see. Okay, let's see, 15. It says, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and bid them that they make them fringes in the borders of their garments throughout their generations, and that they put upon the fringe of the borders a ribbon of blue. And it shall be unto you for a fringe, that you may look upon it, and remember all the commandments of the Lord, and do them. And they that seek not after your own heart and your own eyes, after which ye use to go a-whoring, which means go after other idols, that you may remember and do all my commandments, and be holy unto your God. So that was the real use of the fringe of the garment, was that you would remember this was for all of the Israelites, but there was another part where it talks about just for the priest. I guess priests of Levi later on. It is that they would remember to do all of his commandments and be holy unto your God. So she evidently had to be, well, you know, they were taught. You know, they knew the Old Testament way better than we did, and so she had to have been taught that years ago. You know, just the hem of his garment. That was he was a holy man. And she had already heard about all the miracles that he'd done. So she said, that's why she said, if I can just touch the hem of his garment, I will be healed. And at some point, Jesus told her that it wasn't basically he said it wasn't the garment that healed her, it was her faith in him. And let me see here, in Leviticus chapter 15, I'll just read you what I wrote. Any discharge from the body would make her unclean. Anything or anyone touching her would be unclean and would need to be separated from other people for 7 days, and on the 8th day they could make a sacrifice for a sin offering. So, you know, you had to do that. It was a sin offering and a burnt offering. So, you know, if you touched her, and had she stopped bleeding after 7 days, then all she would have had to do is clean herself up and then make those sin offering and a burnt offering. But she never stopped for 12 years. And so she was considered unclean. And anybody that got around her and touched her or touched anything that she touched, that's what they had to do. They had to separate themselves for 7 days and then to be clean. And then they'd have to make a sin offering and a burnt offering to be considered clean again. Let's see. As long as she was still unclean, she could not be seen in the temple, not go to the temple, and no one would want to be around her. Again, that would be isolating. You know, when we isolate ourselves for whatever reason, and we all have our issues. Her issue was an issue of blood, which constant bleeding. But we have our own issues. You know, we may not have that, but we have our own issues that we makes us feel isolated, that we hide out from everybody, and we cover it up with different things. I'll get into that one a little bit later. But and then there was something that I looked up, and also I looked at something on YouTube. It talks about healing in his wings. So let me go to Malachi, and I know that y'all may have heard this. It's Malachi chapter 4 verse 2. It says, but unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and you shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. So healing in his wings. I knew I had heard that before. And it's not talking about wings like we would think birds' wings or angels' wings. The wings were, it's in Hebrew. It relates back to those fringes or those tassels that was on the priestly garments, that was at the bottom of the priestly garments. Again, how did she know by touching his garment, the hem of his garment, would she be healed? By what had been taught all those years. By touching Jesus' garment, she broke the social and religious status. But you know what? She where he would have said, you know, unclean, unclean, don't touch me. He didn't. He called her daughter right in front of everybody. He said, daughter, thy faith had made thee whole. So she had faith in, you know, in the garment. But it wasn't the garment. Remember, it was her faith in him, and he didn't. Ordinarily, if she'd have went around a priest, he would put his hands up and away with you, unclean, unclean. And have you ever been in a crowd of people and somebody calls somebody a name and how everybody wants to look? So can you imagine how she felt, where she was isolated already from everybody? And then she was so desperate to be healed that she tried to do it because remember, there were so many people there. Peter talks about that. There's a throng of people. How are we going to know who touched you? But he felt something. He knew when the virtue, I believe the Bible says the virtue went out of him. He felt something go out of him and touch, to reach somebody else. But she was, trying to get to him without being noticed. And then he calls out, who touched me? She finally says, it was me. And if I could have just touched the hem, I knew if I could just touch the hem of your garment, I would be healed. She truly was healed. And, but it was because of her faith. Touching the threads, and it's a Hebrew word, and I'll have to spell it. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but it's T-Z-I-T-Z-I-T. Maybe tzit, I don't know. That was the fringe. That's the Hebrew word for it. She thought again that it would heal her, but it was her faith that healed her, and that made her whole. And if you want to look that up on YouTube, it's I just put in healing in his wings, and it's healing in his kanaf is how they pronounced it, which is the wings. That's another Hebrew word. But it does tie in together with that. I had wrote on here, the entire nation of Israel was to wear these fringes, and then later on they did the prayer shawl or the talit to maintain holiness before the Lord. So they did a lot of probably a lot of rules and regulations, things that we as Gentiles, as you would say, don't really understand the Jewish law, and how that they did things, and how everything had to be ceremoniously done. And we don't always understand that, and that's why it's a little harder to understand some of the things in the Old Testament. But yet they do relate to the New. So remember, this is in the New Testament. This is in you can find it in Luke 8:43 through 47. It's also Matthew, pretty much the same story. Some of them are not quite as give you as much detail. Matthew 9 verse 20 through 22 talks about the woman with the issue of blood, and in Mark 5:25 through 34 also talks about it. So you could find it there, but it definitely it all ties in together. And I was trying to figure out, there's between Malachi and Matthew there was 400 years of silence. So there was 400 years there. But if you go all the way back to Leviticus or even Numbers, where the laws were written about in Leviticus, where it talked about the Leviticus 15, where it talks about the discharge or any infection or any blood, that you had to make those sacrifices, or that you had to be declared unclean. And in Numbers, but I don't know how many years it was between, say, Numbers, Leviticus was before Numbers, but how many years it was? Probably several, maybe 1,000. I don't know. I don't know how many years it was, but that was passed on down from generation to generation. Moses wrote the Pentateuch. Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible, and so he would have written those 2. But it had to be hundreds and hundreds of years from the time that she had her issue to when the laws were originally created. So I thought that was really amazing, and and the healing in his wings, and how that it was all tied together, and how she knew that. Like I said, it's passed down from generation to generation. You would think that many years that there would be some details left out, but evidently not. But I just thought it was pretty amazing, But then besides all of that, what made me think about this is here she is. She's been suffering for this for 12 years. That's an issue of blood. But you look at us as God's people. If you're a believer, and even those that are not believers, how many, in relation to setting aside that Levitical laws and stuff like that, but how many of us have had issues our whole life? Things that has been done to us, things that we've gone through, things that we've done to others, hurts, and we've carried it our whole life and can't seem to find any peace. We deal with it, and I've done this. I'm thankful that I am a follower of the Lord now, and I know that just like her, and just like Jesus told her, it was her faith that made her whole, not the garment. And I'm thankful for that. But it's the same thing for me. The things that we've gone through, and the ways that we deal with those discouragements and those painful times, it's the same thing as her issue of blood. And it's for a believer, and I know that there's believers, and I did too, but I know that there's believers that just because you're a believer doesn't mean everything is healed all at one time. It's not. It takes time, and the more you surrender to the Lord, and the more you put your faith in Him, the easier things get. Now, we're not going to be whole. We're still going to have problems, because we're still going to have flesh until Jesus comes back. That's when we'll be like Him. We will be whole, and we won't be dealing with all the issues that we have to deal with today. But you think about all the people and what they're going through, saved and lost alike. Just because you're saved doesn't mean that you're not going to have problems. But you think about all these people out in the world, and how our world really is getting so dark. We know it is. We see it. Even the lost see it. But some people deal with their hurts by drinking and drugs, illicit sex, or affairs, or gambling, or shopping. Shopping anything to take your mind off of it, for whatever it is you're going through. Extramarital affairs, whatever it takes to take your mind off of the pain that you're in. I've talked to several people, even here recently, but you'll see this more in the younger generation, how they would cut themselves. And I even asked somebody, I said, can you explain to me? I said, I'm not judging you, but can you explain to me why you cut yourself? What does that do for you? And they said it takes the pain that you're feeling inside, and it makes you focus on the pain of the cut. So you're not thinking about what it is. It's the pain you have on the inside. And and that's the same thing with all of the things that we do to take our mind off of sadness in our heart, or just whatever it is that it causes you to hurt, whatever you're dealing with. And a lot of people, especially if they've been dealing with issues of their past, since they were children, you learn to cover it up with whatever you can cover it up with, because we just get to where we can't deal with it. And my biggest problem is isolating myself. And you know what? When you isolate yourself, that's when Satan jumps on the bandwagon. He will come after you because you basically are making yourself defenseless. When you isolate yourself from people, or you isolate, and isolating yourself comes also from the Lord. Now, God is everywhere, so you really can't truly isolate yourself from Him. But you can not pray. You can not don't pray. You don't read His Word. You don't go to church. You don't listen to gospel music. You pretty much shut Him out. And when you do that, you're very vulnerable. And Satan comes in and he will destroy you, because that's what he does. He is the destroyer. But we need to be like her, and be like Jesus told her, is put our faith in Him and our trust in Him. And whatever it is that you're dealing with, realize that you can't do it on your own. That's what He's here for. He never intended on us living this life on our own. He's always wanted us. Even in the Garden of Eden, it was always supposed to be in a partnership with God, with mankind. And because He knows that we are but flesh, and that we disappoint ourselves, we disappoint others. You would think you would disappoint God, but sure, it makes Him sad to see us suffer, even if that suffering is brought on by us. But I can't say that we would disappoint Him, because remember, He knows everything. He knew everything from the beginning to the end, from the end of time. He knew you before you were ever born. He knows the very hairs on your head. He knows your thoughts. So I guess we can't really disappoint Him, because to disappoint somebody is to say that they didn't know it was going to happen. They trusted you and didn't know that you were going to do what you did. But you know what? He remembers that we're just flesh, and that we disappoint ourselves. I know I do when I mess up and when I get in a pity party. But if we could just see Him for what He is and put our trust in Him, not put our trust in the things of this world, even and not just put our total trust. And this is going to sound bad, but just hear me out. Not put our total trust in the church, because people at church will let you down, because we are broken. All of us are broken, and so we can't just put our faith in the church, because or in the people of the church. Even though we love each other, even though we support each other, we pray for each other, we still fail every day. We've got to put our trust and our faith in Him and Him alone. And He will guide us into what we need to do. He will help us deal with those things that we have dealt with our whole life, that has hurt us, that's disappointed us, things we're afraid of. He will help us. And so just like her, she was healed, and we can be healed too. I know Jesus has healed me of a lot of things. That I've told you my story before about the things I've done in my past. How I got saved at 10 years old, but I drifted away from the Lord and lived a terrible life for many years. And but and He knew all of that. He knew what I was doing when I was doing it. That was not hid from Him. He saw every bit of it. But He still kept working on me, and I'm thankful that He did. I have no idea where I'd be today if Jesus hadn't come after me. He kept coming after me and kept coming after me. And He's the best thing that's ever happened to me. The closer I draw to Him, the more at peace I am with me. And that's the hard part, is because when you're doing all that, you're not at peace with you. You're not happy with what you're doing. If drugs and alcohol could solve the hurt, then why do you have to keep doing it? If gambling or shopping or extramarital affairs or illicit sex made you happy, then why do you have to? One time should be enough. Why do you have to keep doing it? Why do you put yourself? If putting your happiness in the things of this world, anything in this world, working yourself to death, or material things, If that made you happy, then why do you have to keep doing it? Why just one time? Why wouldn't it just be one time? But it don't. Because those things will never take the place of Jesus Christ. They will never take the place of what he can do in your heart. And that eventually that peace comes out in your life. And that's what people see is, you know, saved people, Christian people are not exempt from the problems of this world. But we are not fighting this world alone. We're not fighting in this world alone. Jesus Christ is he's not only our Savior, he's the one that saved us, but he is he's our battle buddy. I've talked to you about that before. We're in a war. This is a war. For Christians, this world is not our home. So we are in foreign land, and we're in a war while we're here. And so he's not only our battle buddy, he's our leader. He's our captain. And our battle buddies are our fellow Christians, fellow believers. We support one another. And we've got to be there for each other. And we've got to be that light that the lost people need to see. And the only way we could do that is we've got to put our faith and trust in him and let him put the light in us. Let him be our light. So anyway, I hope this helped you. I know it really helped me. I would have never thought about doing one on the woman with the issue of blood and what all that entailed. But, you know, like I said, we all have our issues. And we will have until Jesus comes back, because we live in a fallen world, and you know we're flesh and blood, and we're gonna have our weak days, but we've got to remember who we serve, and that he is all powerful. There is nothing that he don't know about, and it's nothing that he sees. He sees what's coming towards us long before it ever gets to us, and he protects us. Anyway, I hope you have a blessed day. I hope you have today being Friday. I hope you go to church on Sunday. And if you're not one to go to church, you're missing a whole lot. You know, watching it on TV is good. You're still getting the message. But being in church with fellow believers, there's a fellowship there. Just like in your military, where they have, like, they call it like a band of brothers. And I've seen that. My son that passed away back in April, or my stepson, but he passed away back in April, he talked always about a band of brothers, how they are brothers even long after they get out of the military. And, you know, we've got to be that for each other, for brothers and sisters in Christ, and support one another and help each other. Be there. Have a listening ear. Sometimes that's all it takes, is just to listen. But we've got to support one another, praying for one another, staying close to the Lord, because he's all we have. I mean, he's what we've got to depend on, and then everything else hinges on that. You know, our faith in him, and then to you surround yourself with fellow believers. That's your strength. And, you know, read his word and pray, and, you know, go to church, you know, listen to music that's going to lift you up and tell you the truth. You know, a lot of this other stuff, you know, some of this other stuff we like to listen to. I still like to listen to some of it, but you know what? I limit that, because I want to hear truth. There's enough lies out here in this world. I want to hear truth. But anyway, I hope this... you know, I hope that you have a good weekend, and I know we're coming up on the 4th of July, and of course, Lord willing, I'll have another video in a few days, or, you know, maybe next week, but I might do it before then. But just think about the Lord and what he means to you. And if you don't know him and you want to know him, if I can help you, I would love to help you. I would love to share Jesus with you. He loves you more than anything. He loved you enough to die for you. So just trust him. Rely on him. Whatever your issue is, rely on him. All right. I love you. I hope you have a good weekend. Bye.